In conversation with some fascinating ladies who've changed the game in the world of video, music and gaming. Only on Hungama Game Changers podcast.
Hi, and welcome to Hungama Game Changers 2024, a podcast where we celebrate extraordinary women who are pushing boundaries, breaking barriers and inspiring others in their respective fields. Today's guest is a true game changer in every sense of the word and a true entertainer in every sense of the word. She's an independent artist who has crafted a unique space for herself in the indie music scene and recently stepped into the world of acting. She's a one-woman powerhouse, handling everything from songwriting and composing to producing her own music. Known to fans as Dot, please join me in welcoming the phenomenally talented Aditi Saigal to the podcast. Aditi, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, and thanks for that wonderful introduction. It's so nice.
No, and thank you for sharing the learning curve, because I think for every person who takes this journey, each person finds so many little tips and hacks and just understanding of the process. And what we're trying to do here is make sure that we share as much of that as we can. I'm going to start by actually going to the start. So you had a lot of art and culture growing up at home. You had Papa Rock and your mom was in theatre. Did you always just know that you were going to do something in the arts?
I don't know if I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I was drawn to music from a very young age. I think from when I was 6, 7, I started taking piano classes, and then it stuck with me and I got more and more professional, and I decided to go to music college. I think that was the big decision that solidified the fact that I was going to be an artist in some capacity, whether that's on stage or whatever, I don't know. I think definitely being in a musical household contributed to not just my career, but also my personality and the things I'd like to do and think about. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to go back to college. That's a very big decision, and it's a scary decision no matter how you cut it. I know that so many times when I go out, people walk up to me, and oftentimes they are parents with teenagers who want to pursue music. And it's a terrifying thought because it's just so... It's a bit of a gamble, right?
Yeah.
How did you know that it was the right choice for you?
Well, okay, so firstly, there was never this idea that I'm going to go to college and become a star. That was not the plan, you know.
So you just automatically think, I'll go to college and then Taylor Swift?
Not at all. Absolutely not. In fact, if anything, being like fame or being popular or whatever just was not on the radar, and it just happened. I was lucky enough to have parents who were both in the arts, and so they understood the importance of that, and they both had their own they actually were the generation in my family that had to battle with their parents about what they wanted to do. So my dad dropped everything, didn't carry on the printing press that my grandfather had. He instead chose this rock music path, and my mom did theatre. So my mom was always broke, and she seemed just as happy as anyone. Yeah. So I think money or success or fame or anything was not part of the plan. Right. You know, and they were never concerns from anybody. I know it's very different for most kids in India who don't have that kind of support from their parents, and they have to, you know, push through and struggle to be able to make music or get into acting or do anything in the creative arts.
Think that can be an option because you don't also have the pressure of contributing.
Yeah, I think I had the loveliest childhood, and I was very, very lucky.
I was going to say, and that not just the fact that you had the freedom to make these choices, but also the creative environment. And so that informed not just your decisions, but also perhaps your music and...
Absolutely. I think I was completely free. You know, I didn't feel a sense of restriction as a kid. And it really emboldened me. In a lot of ways, it pushed me, and in a lot of ways, maybe I didn't really have those harsh realities put upon me that other kids get at an earlier age, which maybe is a good thing. I don't know, you know. But I always say I had a great childhood and a very free and open-minded household. So that was great.
You know, in entertainment, there's a lot of back and forth in terms of, you know, didn't have the harsh realities or did. And I'm not going to get into that, and we're not having that conversation. What I will say is that, did that mean that imposter syndrome was not a thing in your life?
No. Imposter syndrome is there no matter where you go. It's real, and I've written songs about it. I've got a song called Simmer Down, which is all about how I walked into these rehearsals with my band, and I found that I'm the least qualified musician amongst my entire band. They're all such talented, amazing, wonderful musicians. And here's just little old me, and why is it my band? Why is it not one of theirs? I think I've been lucky enough to have a lot of success at a young age, especially within music. And this is kind of a weird thing to say, but a lot of the all of the success basically came after my father's passing. So it never felt like anything related to him. It just felt like it was my own whatever. But imposter syndrome is definitely something that we all deal with, not just in terms of career, but in terms of, am I pretty enough to do this thing?
Am I enough?
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I suspect that you were probably more qualified than the other musicians in that room. And
I don't think
no. And very often I find so many times it is the women who are. I've been doing what I do for 15 years in gaming, for 27 years in content, and there are times at GDC I'm looking around the room and thinking, what am I doing here? And I know that it's stupid, and I know that I should be able to hold my own. But it's a reality. So
I think one of the ways to kind of deal with it is to aggressively lean into the things that you're good at that other people aren't maybe as good at. So for example, or not just good at, but your own personality and your own take on things. Because ultimately, all the songs have been written already. We're just rehashing the same stuff. So
I love that.
Yeah, it's more about like what story can you tell that is your own. And what nuance can you bring to it? So even for example at Bandland, I just played Bandland, and it's a rock festival full of rock fans all in black t-shirts, and I'm here as Dot, and it was nerve-wracking because it's like everyone's here to see Avenged Sevenfold and Extreme and all these kind of bands. And my music is all like girly and fun, and not that that's not fun, that's its own kind of fun. But what I'm saying is it's very like
lighter.
It's lighter. Yeah, it's definitely lighter. It's not a mosh pit worthy kind of band. But I had to just lean into that. So we got on a bunch of sunflowers onto stage. I dressed very girly. I wore yellow instead of black, and I had the choice, right? I could have leaned into a heavier set but I chose to kind of set myself apart, and
And how did that work out for you?
It worked out great. I think people thought that it was unexpected, and I think I made a lot of new fans that day, and. I think people, and also Bangalore is very kind. The audiences are really lovely in Bangalore, so I was lucky to have the support also. But they sang along, they danced, it was great.
Okay, excellent. Tell me, apart from music, you also studied curriculum and policy?
Yes, I did.
Alright, I want to make it controversial. If there was one policy that you could change in the world of entertainment, what would it be?
The world of entertainment?
It could be music, it could be gaming, it could be film, video.
Policy that I could change. I suppose one thing that I would love to see in India is a greater emphasis on the arts in schools.
I think that's actually so important.
Yeah. I was lucky enough to have that in both my schools, and it's just something you don't see in the typical CBSE curriculum. And I think not just to educate the kids, but to educate the parents as well about the value of the arts. And I don't know how we can accomplish this, but No,
I think one of the things that allowed us to progress at the pace that we did was that we adopted computers very, very early.
Right.
I hope we also have the insight and intuition to realize that with AI, so much of that conventional work that needs to be done in quantum is going to be done by machines. So what's going to be left is the creative thinkers and the original thinkers. And I hope we have the wherewithal to encourage those fields in the students to come.
Yeah.
I will tell you that if you look at the NEP 2020, which is that
was the subject of my dissertation, so I know all about it.
Yeah. Actually, NEP 2020 I find to be a fairly forward-thinking document. I just hope that we
can implement it. I was actually reading about, just because you're talking about this, clanking on the name now, but in Delhi there is a new board which is not CBSE, and it is trying to accomplish formative assessment techniques. So formative assessment is basically not assessment where you look back at the year and just kind of tick box answers, but it's assessment throughout the year that is creative and that kind of encourages learning rather than evaluates it. So it's these are very new kind of things for India.
Now tell me, your music is very unique. It's not very easy to slot in terms of a genre, and it's also very, very personal, right? Where does the confidence to do this come from?
I don't know. I don't know where it comes from. I think because the idea is not to be famous, because the idea is not to be the idea is to just make great art, and that's always been the thing. And if people connect with it and fame happens, that's great, because it makes, or like if you write a song that becomes popular, that's great, because that further enables you to develop as an artist. But the first foremost thing is always the work, and if you let go of that and if you kind of start pandering, then I don't see the point. So that's always been who I am, and that's always been my work.
And the storytelling that you do through your songs, is that intentional, or does that just happen? How does the art come out of you? Is it planned?
Sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. There are times I want to tell a very particular story, and I think up an idea and I just try to make the words fit that idea. Other times I'm just playing on the piano and words come out. And one of the things I like to do when I am planning a song or a piece of music is to think, okay, this is the topic I want to write about, and come up with like a list of words that I feel are pleasing to the ear but also could be used in some interesting sort of way. And I think about some imagery that I can incorporate into my music, and the storytelling element builds from the words. So that's why on Instagram I call myself Dot and the Syllables.
Right.
I'm very interested in the English language and in poeticism and the way that words...
songs like Asymmetrical and I think also Wes Anderson. There is a lot more structure to the storytelling.
Yes, there is. Yeah, so that's when you decide, okay, I'm going to write a song about this, and what are some of the fun kind of words and bits of imagery I can use to tell this story. Another great technique is to think detail, place, and place, detail, and sense. So you can think, okay, this is the place when I was a high school girl.
Right.
You're automatically in a setting.
Yes.
Then you think, who is the person, and what is the detail that I can kind of bring out. She wore curls in her hair and spectacles, whatever. And little things like that kind of they pepper the story and they make it come alive, and those are very interesting to me, and I play around with those often, yeah.
Okay, tell me about this one-man army. You write and compose and produce?
I don't produce exactly. I co-produce. I mean, I'm not a producer by any stretch, and I worked with a lot of really great producers to know that I'm not actually a producer. But of course, I have a say in. I wouldn't say I'm a producer by any stretch, but I would say that I work very, very closely with the person who's producing my music and ensure that my own ideas are not left off the table. Other than that, I write, I sing, I play keys, and I conceptualize the visual elements to the music. So whether that's the album art or the music video, I'm very involved in that process as well. Yeah.
Okay. There's a song you've written which talks about creative fog. In my head, my first reaction is, isn't she far too young to be talking about creative fog? I mean, it's becoming a reality in my life. But at what point do you feel the creative fog comes on? And does that also come on just from not overexposure as much as just the fact that you don't get the downtime then to sort of create?
There are a number of elements to this. The first is that you're right, time is always short. And sometimes I have this thing with my phone where I just want to chuck it. Like, I wasn't really someone who would spend a lot of time on their phone, but now I have to because of work and all of this. And it's just something I'm much more of a doing things kind of person and being in the moment kind of person. And it's been quite a balancing act to figure out just how to have that work-life balance. So definitely there are moments where you just don't have time to think, and I think with the early success that I got, that came hand in hand. And the other part of it is that sometimes I think you get emotionally a little bit in overdrive. Whatever life happens and it just takes over your brain and you can't see beyond the emotion that you're feeling almost. So that's the other part of it. And I definitely have had long instances of brain fog and of a writer's block. When I was after my first tour in India, I actually took a break from writing for about 2 years because I just couldn't write. It happened like instantly after the first tour. Because
also you had a song that went viral in 2017.
Yeah. Everybody dances.
Everybody dances. Yeah. That's really very young.
Yeah.
How long did you tour after that?
So I released that song and I think about 10 others. And off the back of that, in 2017, 2018, we did a tour, a 5-city tour with a trio. So it was a double bass and me playing keys and a jazz drummer. And the tour was sold out. I traveled shows like next day kind of. And I think I just got overwhelmed. I was supposed to play NH7 and I couldn't do it. I couldn't fly back to India. I got too nervous suddenly out of nowhere. And what I did, my reaction to this was, I'm quitting music. Taking 1 year off at least. I dropped out. I didn't drop out, but I took 1 year out of college to work as an intern in my university's Erasmus program.
Okay.
So I was the student administrator.
Right.
And I basically had an office job for 1 year because I couldn't handle being creative at that time. It just felt like too much. And it actually helped to clear my mind. And when I then came out of that job and had some more time to myself, I started writing again.
Right. So you had the big break with Zoya, right? The Archies, I think apart from the fact that it was a much awaited project and it launched a lot of youth, you also came away with some of the nicest reviews and critical acclaim. I want to ask you how that happened and how you kind of get there, but I want to ask you first, do you introduce yourself as a musician who can act or an actor who sings?
I think a musician who can act, only because acting is...
Gaga, not the Bradley Cooper.
Yeah, I mean, acting came later, no? At the later stage of my career. So, and I'm very curious about it and I'm very excited about it. It's the new thing in my life. So, but it's definitely not something where I've had years of experience. I'm a newbie.
Right.
So, definitely that one.
Okay. Now tell us how that happened.
What happened? Sorry, how I got cast?
Yeah.
It actually happened through music. So I began because Zoya saw my YouTube channel and she loved the music. She wanted Asymmetrical to be in the film, which didn't actually end up happening in the final cut, but we did record it and everything. When she saw me on Zoom, she kind of said that, would you like to audition? I think you'd be great for the part. And I didn't think I would get it, but I got it. And I didn't really know what to expect because I knew nothing about film. I knew nothing about Bollywood, like as an industry. Right. And I was also commissioned to write more music for the Archie. So I wrote Betty's themes, and I wrote with Shankar Ehsaan Loy and Ankur Tiwari and Javed Akhtar. So, big hard hitters in the industry. And I think I walked into it thinking I have nothing to lose because this was never my dream. This is just it's been handed to me on a silver platter, and I have to just make the most of it,
Right.
And met some great people there, and thoroughly enjoyed.
So enjoyed it enough to do it again?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Now, I'm going to talk to you about gatekeeping.
Okay.
Because I think a lot of the women musicians I talk to, and it doesn't actually matter which side of the pond they're on, universally, gatekeeping becomes a thing.
Okay.
Sometimes I think there's a lot of gatekeeping. There's some amount of gatekeeping that may be intentional. Sometimes it's just because they're not thinking of you, because you're not top of mind when they're thinking of a headliner, or they're divvying up how they, what each artist gets for their performance. Have you experienced gatekeeping, and more importantly, do you feel like it's changed after
Done Archie's?
Archie?
Honestly, no, because only because I have been in the indie scene to start with, and I was in the UK, so I honestly wasn't really, I was industry adjacent anyway, and I was studying, and I was young, and it wasn't that I was trying to make it in the industry or anything like that. And then Archie's hit, and then since Archie's, obviously a lot of doors have opened up for me.
Sure.
So one thing that I think has stood out to me is that people are noticing the writing, and I'm being called back because they like the writing, and they don't always expect it. They kind of, because in India I think we have a huge focus on singers and singing, but I'm here bringing the writing part of it. So I think that is because I'm not I would say a very technical singer. I am known more for my writing. So I'm trying to make that the cornerstone of my career, even as an actor, because I think it's very important to be able to write as an actor, because there's so much stuff you have to do on the spot. So much you have to come up with little nuances to the character that come, I'm not saying rewrite the script. I'm just saying it really helps if you understand other aspects of the creative process in either field.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think, and I also think that writing overall, not just in music, is now starting to get noticed as the craft and the contribution that it is. I had Atika Chauhan who can chat with me a while back, and one of the things that she said is that whether you like it or not, every writer writes something, and that's something they write over and over again. She says, some people write humor, some people write innuendo. मैं gender लिखती हूँ, and I'm okay with that. And she says, and at some point you as a writer start realizing that, and then other people start realizing that that's what you're bringing to the table.
Correct.
And it's heavy-handed, or it's sort of delicate,
yeah.
whatever it is, but it adds those layers.
Absolutely, and I think one of the great things about actually working in the Archies was this side, the writing side of the music, with especially working with Zoya in such close quarters, and bouncing ideas off and kind of collaborating. I think that was the key takeaway, because up until then I had just written alone. And then suddenly I was collaborating with all these legends. So, that was...
God, you could never have those experiences no matter how many years you studied music, right? You can't never learn in a classroom.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned that acting will hopefully become a bigger part of what you do, or at least more, something that you do enough to continue. How do you hope to balance music and acting? Because you're very passionate about your music also.
Yeah, I think it's just about riding the waves at the right time. When an opportunity comes along, to kind of hop on it and ride the wave until you get the next opportunity. And sometimes that'll be music, sometimes that'll be acting. And in terms of balance, I think a lot of the roles that I'm looking at have to do with some kind of musicality, in some sense, either playing a musician or maybe writing some of the songs for the film that I'm playing a character in. And even if not that, I think just being an actor means that your sense of lyricality and rhythm is always going to play a part. So it's inescapable that I'll be juggling both of them, and I will say it will get very tiring and very difficult, but I'm pretty good at taking time out for myself and figuring out how to be emotionally okay and stuff.
So you basically currently got something of a foothold in two of the possibly most competitive industries there are. How do you feel that, for young girls who want to get into either of these fields, how can they kind of overcome some of the challenges maybe you faced, or maybe you didn't, but others do?
I think the thing that gets me through it, and I think the thing that gets a lot of people through it, is to focus on the work first. Because a lot of times what happens is we get caught up in the surrounding stuff. So like, who do I need to talk to, and what do I need to, what dress do I need to wear, and this and this. But really the thing that matters in the end is none of that. It's just the work that you need to put in. And the thing that drives you is the enjoyment, right? So if you don't have that sense of gratification from the thing that you're doing, then there's no point doing it. I think like there's no point doing music if all I really want to do is play one particular festival at one particular stage. The idea is not that. The idea is that what is the music you're making? What is the film you're making? What is the art you're creating? I know that's a very basic answer, but I think it holds true.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so since you talked about the thing that kind of pulls you through, do you have anybody, apart from obviously your parents and the environment you had, who you think was there to either mentor you or guide you or turned around and gave you the time of day or the leg up?
I don't think I had a mentor not...
Just like allies, just people who you think were there for you, pushing you when kind of you're down.
My uncle Ban was there, he's sort of been in the music industry for a while, and I think he was my manager for a long while, and he just always had my best interest at heart, and he had his own idea of what my future should look like. So he didn't settle for anything with me. He was very adamant that I only be treated the best and whatever. So I think
sometimes you need somebody to kind of make the demand that in that moment you're not making because